So we're trying to pull all this together so we can give our feedback on this thoroughfare plan. And I'm so glad there's so many people here. This is awesome. This is Ronnie Clark, Mayor of Staples, which was very heavily impacted by this plan. And to the point where Ronnie is now running for commissioner of Precinct 1. Precinct 2, sorry, Precinct 2.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm Jacqueline Ott. I'm the commissioner for Precinct 1. My term began in 2025, so I'm almost a year through this. Thank you for being here, first of all. I wanted to talk a little bit about the background of why thank you, Mayor. I want to talk a little about the background of why I decided to do these meetings and send this out. A little bit about the history of the Thoroughfare Plan, current state of the Thoroughfare Plan. I'll tell you what's on these maps that I've brought, and then I know that this says 5 to 7, but I will stay here until they kick me out, as long as you guys want to stay here and ask questions and talk. So you're not rushed. There's no hurry from my side whatsoever. I'm all yours until we're done. So Thoroughfare plans, generally speaking, are projects that are done by cities and counties to plan for anticipated growth. There is no state regulation that goes into that, except for the fact that a lot of the roads that are state regulated will be reflected on the Thoroughfare plan. So for any FM road or interstate, et cetera, those are state jurisdiction roads. So TxDOT is the controlling authority. If they have a plan, or if we think that something will need to be expanded, it may be reflected on our map, but just know that we as a county do not have control over that. Guadalupe County's current Thoroughfare plan is from 2012. The way a Thoroughfare plan gets passed from the county perspective is that something is generated, typically by engineering, and the Commissioner's Court votes it in by a majority vote. So there's 5 of us, there would need to be 3 votes that approve the plan. That happened in 2012. The vision of the county was to have this done every 10 years. They began this plan in 2021. It's not finished, obviously, we're still here. And I'm going to be very candid about my opinion on this, and I ask that you are very candid about yours back to me, because there are some things on this plan that I vehemently disagree with, and if you have watched any of the Commissioner's Court sessions where this has come on the session, you will see that, because I do talk openly about that in court. I have had quite a few head-to-head conversations with the contract engineer that we've hired, and so just to explain that a little bit too, the county has an in-house engineer that is the liaison between the commissioners and the contract engineering company that we hired that created these plans. They present them back to us, and they've been going through renditions of it. So they began this in 21. There was a version of the plan that came out a couple years later. This is all before my time, but just gathering the history of how we got here. The county didn't like it. I'm not sure where the disconnect was, but the county canceled that plan, basically started from scratch. We have a new person from the contract engineering company, which is Pape Dawson, that has worked on these plans. I have to tell you, I have been thoroughly unimpressed with the work that they've done. I have been thoroughly unimpressed with the engineer that's been assigned to this. That is not a criticism of Pape Dawson, generally speaking. I think they do have some wonderful people that work for them, some very intelligent people that I've enjoyed working with over the years in doing projects. However, there has been a level of flippancy in regard to the Guadalupe County plan that I think is unacceptable, which has been the reason for a lot of the back and forth in the court sessions that I've had with these individuals. So the vision for this was to be done in 2022, and it's not. And I think a lot of the reason and a lot of the feedback that I've gotten, yes, sir?
Can you step just a little closer to the microphone so we can...
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is this good? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So a lot of the reason why I think this is so problematic is that we are growing at such a rapid rate that is outside of our control as a county, that there's so many changes on this map because there has not been a current map in, as of January, 14 years. And we're growing too fast to have not paid attention to that on a more frequent basis. So you see a ton of changes on here that are shell-shocking people, rightfully so, because of that. I think it would be more appropriate that we look at something like this every 3 to 5 years and make adjustments accordingly, because there has been an overwhelming amount of feedback. I will tell you that as far as the court goes, and in the many discussions that we have had, the unveiling of the Thoroughfare Plan, and the feedback that I have received, I think in total, from the county's meeting that revealed the thoroughfare plan to emails, phone calls, et cetera, that I have had trouble keeping up with and fielding myself, I have probably spoken to between 500 and 600 people from Precinct 1, overwhelmingly with the same voice, which is that they are scared of the change, they don't like all the adjustments, they're worried about their land. That's pretty much been a solid theme. It is what I expected it to be as well. For some reason, seems to not be the overwhelming sentiment that I'm hearing from the court, from precincts 2 and 4. Also 3, but 3 is mostly city limits, so understand that they're in a much different situation because they aren't dealing with county roads. That confuses me a little bit because I think that the citizens of Precinct 1 are very concerned and have a very similar voice. I will tell you that the way that I will vote is going to reflect your opinions, because I feel that that is my job as your representative, to listen to your voices and to make a decision accordingly, and I don't feel pressure if I'm the only one that votes a certain way. So I want you to be very, again, candid with me about how you feel about these things and why. I am confused about why that's not the overall sentiment, but here we are, 1 vote out of the necessary 3 and overall 5. So, okay, a couple things. We had an unveiling of the thoroughfare plan, so there were several different final versions. And again, I did feel some disagreement in how we presented that. The engineering company had not published that map to anyone. They did not send notice to anyone in the county. There was a survey done in past years, somewhere in the earlier 2020s. I wasn't in office then. They got about 400 responses to the survey. I'm not sure even whose responses those were, but obviously there's far more than 400 people affected by this, so I did find that strange. We had a presentation and an unveiling, if you will. But for those of you that were there, Precinct 1 was the busiest one, of course. Precinct 1 is the biggest one land-wise in Guadalupe County. It's 52% of the total landmass. We have more county roads than any other precinct by almost double. So it's not surprising that it would be that busy. But people had very little time to look at a map, see if a potential road was planning to go through their place or alongside their place, react to it, and ask questions, and there was a ton of people. And I don't think it was sufficient time in the 2.5 hours that we gave. Because of that, I chose to create the flyer that I'm assuming at least most of you got, hopefully all of you got. Hopefully our GIS is working, because that's where we instructed to send it to, is addresses in Precinct 1. I don't feel like people got enough time. I don't feel like everyone knew about the public meeting. And because of that, I chose to have these 6 meetings throughout this week so that we could get as many people in that wanted to be in, look at these maps, and submit their feedback. If you go on the county website, the most current map that is published on the county website is either from August or September of 2025. It is not the most current version. I have asked for it to be put on the website, but please understand that anything we do as Commissioner's Court is done by majority vote, and the majority did not agree to put the most current one on the website, so I have physically brought them to you. So they are physically here. This one right here, it also, I'm gonna say a lot, and then I'm gonna let y'all come in and look and write and whatever you wanna do, but if you forget which one is which, there's a little corner of each map, and you can see where it will say the month and the year it was produced, okay? So this one is August or September of 2025. That rendition has gone back to engineering, and they have come back with a new one. They were supposed to have it weeks ago. They did not give it to me till Friday evening. The version for December 2025, which is the most current version, which again is not on our website, and that is against my will, are these 4. The difference between these 4, they are the same map with the same changes, but you will see that on one version of each of these, there are solid black lines in addition to colored lines. The solid black lines are the thoroughfare plans from the cities. So you will just see how they overlay with the counties, and the ones without the solid black lines, so there's 1 and 1, one of each, and then one of each on the easels. The ones without the solid black lines, it just shows you what the county in TxDOT has going on, okay? So, and if you forget that, which I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you at once, there is also a key map square in the bottom left-hand corner of each of them, and it will say Other City MTP. That is referring to the solid black line, okay? So just to show you kind of what cities have planned. In regard to city plans versus county plans, the county can write in what we think are proposed roads, where they should go, etc. They will overlap sometimes state roads and often overlap city roads. However, sometimes the city and the county will not disagree on certain things for various reasons. So if you see a colored line here and a black line there, that's what that means. In addition to that, sometimes the cities will draw lines that are black lines in ETJ and or just the county. Couple things about that. If a city has a line in the county area that is not in the city area, they cannot on their own just go build that road, right? Because they don't have the jurisdiction, it's in the county. But they still do that because, again, engineering thinks that's forward-looking. And I'm not trying to criticize engineering by any means, but that is their motivation when I've asked them for why they're doing that. Another note that I think is very relevant at this point to tell you is that I have been studying the legislative tendencies. And so what I mean by that is that when the legislature meets and they make decisions every 2 years, watching how those decisions are going, but also watching the bills that are filed by a certain representative and that aren't necessarily passed but are almost passed, and they keep getting closer to passing. And so you can see that there may be a trend into that possibly becoming law in the near future. That being said, it is the legislative trend to take away powers from local government, cities and counties. And it is continuing to go that way, and I believe it will continue to be planned that way. I have spoken to several of our representatives about that. They agree. That's just in the discussion they're having with their colleagues as well. So one of the things that I think will happen, right now cities can't involuntarily annex anymore at all, but roads that are in the ETJ, the cities may lose jurisdiction of entirely, and that may then fall on the county. So know that if there's some roads in there that are in the ETJ, if that applies to you, okay, of whatever city it may be, that if it's a city road, they may not end up with the authority to be able to do that. That will depend on the near future. But again, I do think it's coming, and I think that's worth mentioning, just because there's been a pretty obvious trend in that direction. I've been talking a lot straight. So, okay. Couple of things I wanted to talk about too real quick. So from the engineering standpoint and from people that are pro thoroughfare plan, and I will say I am certainly for future planning. I am for us having appropriate infrastructure. It is obvious that we are blowing up quickly. We have a lot more people coming. We need to be able to provide for those people. However, I think that the least invasive method possible is what's appropriate. If there is a road that has to be constructed that's new, my vote will always be for that road to run alongside property lines and not through someone's property. If there is a possibility that we expand an existing road versus building a new road, I will always be for that too, so please know that. Each rendition of this map is engineering coming back and doing something different with it according to our feedback, and sometimes they add new roads. This most recent version, they've added new roads in Precinct 1, mostly in the New Braunfels area in comparison to the previous. I've already sent them an email and said, we specifically asked you not to do this in Precinct 1. Why are you adding these new roads? We are trying to minimize impact on the citizens' land. Of course, they haven't responded yet, but just letting you know that I'm continuing to stay on top of that with them. The reason why they will say this is helping the people, I want to explain that because I think there's been a lot of confusion about why is this helpful to people, because it is my understanding, and I feel this way as well, that landowners look at something like this and say, hey, like I'm not okay with giving up part of my land. And the flippancy of some of the engineers that we've worked with where they say, well, this person has 300 acres, what does it matter if we just take a little bit? And it's like, well, no, these people bought 300 acres because they wanted 300 acres, right? Like they bought that amount because they wanted that amount, I mean, obviously, and they're keeping that and not selling that because they want that. Whether it be that it's homestead, business, et cetera, I mean, that's important to, I think, everyone here. I think that's probably why all of you are here, and I certainly do understand that and respect that very much. Please know that I also understand that in our economy today, buying what you already have right now is probably impossible for, I would say, 98% of anybody in the United States. Things are more expensive, economy's hard, groceries are higher, all of those things. So I mean, I understand that. I know that the majority of the people that have talked to me feel that way as well. I know that a lot of the land that you have or you may live on has been in your family for a long time. It's part of your heritage, and I certainly respect that too. And I will continue to advocate for that. These roads are not on Road and Bridge's schedule, so I have gotten a lot of questions about when is this happening, when will this start? These are not in our road plan. We don't have money set aside to build them. We don't have them in the plan or schedule for Road and Bridge for our next fiscal years. We do that every year, and we release the next roads that we're working on or building. This is completely dependent upon people selling their land. So somebody has to sell their land that is along one of these roads that you'll see a change indicated to a developer, so sell to a developer, developer has to develop and has to create a need that arises to a certain level of public safety necessity that more roadway has to be created, whether that's an expansion or whether that's a new road. Now, I think that there's a certain line of thinking where that's going to comfort people, and I don't think that comforts people. But I just want you to understand that that is where engineering is coming from when they say we're doing this to reserve it to benefit the people. So it is a reservation of a right-of-way so that if a developer develops, that instead of the county tax dollars or state tax dollars that are coming out of your pocket paying for that part of the roadway, the developer is then responsible for the expense of that creation or expansion of the roadway. So yes, that is beneficial in a sense, but it is my opinion from listening to the constituents that your opinion is you'd rather not give up your land. So yes, I agree. I don't know who's saying it, but I can hear the prioritization of developers, and I am not for that. I think especially in our part of the county, development is not happening at the speed that it's happening in the other precincts. The other precincts are blowing up. Here it's not anywhere near, and I understand that. So please know that I very much understand that.
It is blowing up. It is. Right on the other side of your precinct, it is. We got 4 crappy Lennar subdivisions.
Right.
To go in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. On the other on the other precincts, they are blowing up, and out here, it's not as bad.
Precinct 1 as well.
Yeah, and it is coming.
As long as y'all do not redo your subdivision rules and you allow Lennar homes to pollute our creeks and rivers, that's where the problem. None of this matters if you do not get on board and stop these developers. You can't stop people from selling their family land. I understand that. But it's up to the Commissioner's Court to rethink what your subdivision rules are allowing. On-site sewer facilities, everybody, this is happening. And the Commissioner's Court is allowing it to happen.
That's not true.
Okay, wait, 1 second. Let me address that really quick.
I understand that, but it starts in the county, lady.
Okay, wait, let me address that briefly. So we actually. Okay, in response to what you're saying, we are under constant revision of our subdivision regulations. We have a development center with people, environmental health, code enforcement, and engineering that are actively working on that. As we don't even wait till they're completely done to vote in a new phase of stricter subdivision regulations. Every time they come up with something that is more restrictive on developers, we vote that temporary phase in, and we do it every time. We as a county are actually stricter with our subdivision regulations than pretty much any other county in Texas right now. We have lawsuits that are against the county from developments because we're so strict. So right now we are in pending litigation for that. We are doing everything that is legal, absolutely, but developers are still suing us because they are saying that Guadalupe County is standing in the way of their commercial enterprise. So I assure you we are on top of that. That's as much as we can do. The comment earlier, and I'm sorry, I believe it was you, yes, that's what I thought. So correct, TCEQ is the governing body over a lot of this. We do stay in touch with them, we do contact them. In regard to regulations of people coming in and developing with outside of subdivision regulations. And so what I mean is I'm referring to side setbacks, front setbacks, how far people have to be apart, lot sizes, frontage requirements, how much on a road someone has to be to even get certain services from the county. We have all of that, and it's strict. There's a couple problems. Developers come and develop without telling us. They buy land and they just start. We catch them, we ticket them, and then we get into litigation with them, but it takes time. We are doing everything we can with our resources. I think I can speak very assuredly for the whole court to tell you that all of us know that that's a problem. We are all doing what we can, and we're all concerned. In regard to TCEQ and state regulations, the legislators are the ones that have the authority over water, the authority over many of these regulations, land. We know that there's a water shortage, and we've constantly been in contact with them to advocate for us about that because we know that more people coming in are going to use more water, and we are already running out. We know that. We are very much aware of that, so I assure you we are on top of that. But again, the county only has so much authority, and we are doing everything we can. We constantly work with attorneys. We have one of our attorneys in-house in the courthouse with us, and we talk to him every single day, and I assure you we are on that on a daily basis. I want to jump really quickly toward the key map to explain to you what you're looking at so that you guys can come get started. I want to let you know I have put notepads here sticky pads, different types of pins or markers on all of these. However you want to submit feedback, if you want to write directly on these paper maps, you're welcome to do it. If you want to write on sticky notes and put in there, if you want to write on a notepad so that you have more length to write whatever you have to say, please do. I invite you to write whatever you have. Use anything that we have here. Chris Kaufman, how you doing? And so what we'll do after that is we'll collect all those comments, submit them to engineering, and I will tell them to do as much as they possibly can to comply with all of your requests. The square down here talks about widths of roads. There are 4 different colors that represent what the county roads are, what they will be constructed up until width-wise. Each color represents a total width. It's 90 foot, 120, 150, and 200. I have submitted multiple requests to engineering, TxDOT, and RGIS to ask if we can have the current widths of the roads placed on any of our maps. I have been told no by all of them, that the county did not pay them and that's not in their scope of work to include those widths. So what I have done, if you have any questions about that, is that I have the roadways on a note in my phone. I've driven every single one of these roads and taken notes on the size of the shoulders, lanes, turn lanes, if there are turn lanes, ingress, egress lanes on the outside, and how much room they have for the homes, mailboxes, or fences on the sides of the road. It's a very long document, but if you have questions, I have it. One resource that is available in TxDOT on their website is that if you go to a TxDOT road, so again, that's an interstate or an FM, and you click on any part of the road, they will tell you what the entire right-of-way reservation width is, but do know that it changes as the road goes along. So pretty much none of these roads have a consistent width the whole way that whatever governmental entity owns, so city, county, state, but it's an approximate. I personally have several requests pending for taking some of these roads down to less of a width than they are, but please don't assume that that's already on my list. If you feel strongly about that, and place that on there. Last thing about this, so again, the color of the road will correspond to what they are trying to reserve up to width-wise. If you see the road is a solid line, that means that the road already exists. So it's an expansion of something that's already there. That's the same for city, county, or state, no matter who has jurisdiction of the road. If you see a dotted colored line, that means that that does not already exist, and the plan would be to build a road there, again, if someone sells and someone develops. If you see a black line with a colored line running the same route, that means that that plan is on both the city's plan and the county's plan. The city, however, did not differentiate, so you won't see dotted or solid, you will only see solid for them. And so that's both proposed and expansion. We separated ours with dotted and straight lines. The last thing I will tell you, it's very hard to tell on here. My husband is colorblind and he cannot tell the difference with some of the colors, but the land tracts are included on this map, the version, one's part of the version for each one. Those are in gray, okay? They do not have all of the structures that exist on there. I know that, because I mean, there's no way they do. And the already existing roads that are not part of the expansion or new construction are a very light brown. It is very difficult to tell the difference between the light gray and the light brown. I have submitted multiple requests to use a different color so it's easier to see. Those requests have been denied. But I want you to know that. So if you see brown lines close to a road that's already, being constructed or being expanded, understand that those are two different things, and they're choosing not to use the existing road. That is always an argument that I've been making with the engineering company as well. Also, it is very obvious that they have not taken into account all of the roads that exist, because again, in going out and driving and observing these myself, that is obvious. I have asked them if they have gone out there themselves and driven these roads and seen where all of these things. I'm sorry?
Speaker has the floor. We've got a lot of back talk back here. Can't hear you.
So again, I've requested from the engineering company whether or not they have physically driven out to all of these places themselves and seen the territory, because a lot of their choices of road placement have been questionable. I've asked them for a topographical layer so that we could see if some of the roads that are going through properties have a reason. Is there water? Is there a tank? Is there a cemetery, historical marker, something that we can't see by looking at this piece of paper? They have informed me they have not driven all of these roads themselves. They have not physically seen them. They are not included, but that's not included within their scope of work. So just to illustrate for you several of the reasons why I am very disappointed with the work that we have received back from this engineering company. I do not think that it is appropriate or up to scale at all. In the flat layer map, it's very difficult to see exactly where things lie. I just want to be very candid with you about my, what I would say is extreme dissatisfaction with the services that we've been provided, which is in front of us. So again, for you guys that walked in at the end, if you've looked online, this is the version that's online, August, September 2025. The current version is not online. I got outvoted on that. I wanted them to publish it. They said no. December 2025, which is the current version, is reflected in these two maps and those two maps. Those are identical sets. The difference is that one of them has the city plan included on them. So relevant to you guys would be New Braunfels and Seguin. That would touch Precinct 1, and some of San Marcos as well. And over here is the same thing. So if there's black lines, it includes the city. If there's not, it's just the county. And it is my understanding through the advocacy of the Mayor Staples, Mr. Clark, that we have rerouted FM 621 to be not expanded where it is, to not encroach upon that city. So I definitely applaud his advocacy for that. And certainly agree. And so I think that's a very good example, because when Mr. Clark came to our court and presented, or Mayor Clark, excuse me, came to our court and presented that information, I used to live in Fentress, so of course I've driven through Staples, but not looking through this lens. And so I did go drive that to see, what I thought about what his comments were. And of course, you drive through that and you can see very clearly that any expansion would take out historical markers, cemeteries, churches, private property, city, et cetera. I mean, it's very obvious. So I want to say that's just an example of advocacy being effective and people listening to that. So I'm glad for him, and I hope that we can do the same for all of you. If you guys want to come up, that's all I have, but I'm here for questions at any time. I will be right here. Do you want to ask you?
Yes, I'd like to.
Yes.
So I went to the county thing.
Yes, ma'am.
And I went to the city thing.
Yes.
And the city denied that they have anything to do with those roads that are in the black, like going like from Eden Road across that way, that are black up at the top in there, not the colored roads, but the other ones. The city said that those are ETJ and they can't do ETJ and they can't annex, and that those are set roads that were passed in 2017 and that we can't amend them.
You can amend any thoroughfare plan at any time. We can amend any small part of this, or we can amend the entire thing at any time by a majority vote. I'm not sure why they would give you that answer, but that's certainly true of the county lines. Any line on these maps that is a solid black is from a city's plan. That is not the county's plan. So
They would not take responsibility for it. When I spoke at the county, y'all didn't take responsibility.
it's not our roads, ma'am.
So, I mean, this isn't.
Those are the city's plans, I assure you.
I asked to speak to the engineer, and I have not heard from him. And so the other thing is, at the county, y'all said that we would not be obligated to sell our property. If the developer, we could tell the developer no. Is that true?
You can tell the developer no, but if their reservation is in place and you don't accept their offer, they can move forward into litigation if they wish. And then at that point, it would go to a court. So depending on a judge's decision, they could force a sale. That is true. All of the county's roads here, this is not a plan.
Thanks, folks, for answering questions.
This is not a plan that's in place that's going to be constructed. What I'm saying is these roads are what the county is wanting as their reservation, as in saying this is where it will be if it becomes necessary. Does that make sense?
So if they've already written it on their map, approached by developers, and say no, the developer has the right then because they already have the reservation.
No, the reservation is so that it will obligate the developer to pay for the road construction if the road construction happens.
If somebody's developing down a place or two over, doesn't it make more sense that y'all could just say, we're not going to put these roads in, and we're going to make it cost prohibitive for developers to come in and do any of this kind of stuff?
Well, but what do you mean specifically about that?
Don't serve the roads, and then you don't have to worry about it because the builders won't be able to afford to come in and buy the land or take it over.
Okay, so
You said we've got to have a permit to do something to our property. Do the builders not have to have a permit to build a subdivision?
they do have to have permits,
Okay,
many
so
permits.
if they've got a permit to build a subdivision, why don't you make that permit process that you have to have transportation routes part of your subdivision?
We have as many regulations placed upon the developers as we can legally in regard to their subdivisions.
But what I'm saying is not just preempt them with not giving them access to those places.
So, and that's one of the reasons I'm having this meeting, because what is much more effective than me individually saying, hey, I don't like this, is me coming and saying, hey, I met with the citizens, this is their feedback, and I don't like this. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm here, and I agree with you, and I understand that that's how.
And you're one of 5, so who are the other 2
Yeah.
that are voting with you or against
Well,
you?
I don't know how any of them will vote, but I will say at this point in time that I have been the only one that has been vocally opposed to all of these changes, and I don't know whether or not I can't speak for them, but I can tell you that I have been by far the most vocally opposed in front of the court, in front of the people in the court, to the engineering company, and out loud on the recording in the archives.
Why would any other commissioner vote with you? It doesn't affect them at all. So if they could just say, well, that's precinct 1, we don't care. We're not in that precinct, so yeah, let's just go ahead and not vote with her.
Precincts 2 and 4 do have a lot of rural area and a lot of development and proposed roads in them. So that's part of why I was saying I was a little bit confused, but there being less outpouring, I'm not sure why. But I would imagine they're getting some similar feedback to me. Precinct 3, that's what I was saying, is majority city. They really don't have county roads. There's one part of one, but it's FM 1518. So they are not going to have citizens coming to them complaining because they don't have citizens in the county. That's not their constituency because of how the lines are drawn.
These housing development permits, are they posted on the county's website? Can I go to the county and say, okay, Jim Bob and Company are building a permit or have applied to build a subdivision?
So any permits that the county is required to maintain, and we do require as much as we can, should be available on our county website. Or you can call anybody from there. If you don't see something that you think should be on there, then yes, we should be able to have that information for you. Absolutely. But several drainage, stormwater, stuff like that, sometimes that's overlooked by the state, and so those permits would be state regulated, so then they would have those permits. But yes, anything that we have, yes, they should be. Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming out and doing this.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Most of us are connected by FM 20 or Kingsbury Road.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell us, we have collective understanding, the size of those 2 roads and the size of the improvements? You said you had a list?
Yeah. So the size of the improvements or potential width is going to be on the key map right here, and then it's going to, so that might have been something I should have expounded on. So they don't have a set width, but they can tell you, generally speaking, if you have a road that's one this way, one lane this way, one lane that way, that typically that's how far. I can come talk to you.
It'll take out the store?
It'll go through the store.
Oh, the Kingsbury Road expansion.
Yeah, if Kingsbury Road, someone went out and measured it just a while ago, and that'll go through the store.
How wide is
I'll lay down in front of
Kingsbury Road now
the
versus-
bulldozers.
So I just wanted to make sure, because I had trouble at my own house looking at the website, kind of understanding what the maps mean.
Okay.
And you're telling me that there's a newer version of the map than what's on the county website
Yes,
right now.
that's right.
Can you get a link to that? Or can I share that with the new map through you, or?
Yes, so it's not put up as a link on the website. The current website map is an earlier rendition, which is the one that's on the far left side that this gentleman's looking at right here. If you look in the corner right here, there's a little legend on each one of them, and it'll show you the publication date of the map. So this one's August of 2025. This is what you'll find on the county's website. However, based on feedback from the commissioners, feedback from the community, the engineering, not only our in-house engineer, but our contracted engineering firm did generate a more updated map, and that's what we're looking at here. So the set of maps that are in front of us are identical to the set of maps that are over here on the easels. It was just for convenience of access. The difference between this set, one from the other, and same for what we're looking at over here, is that this map does not include the city's major thoroughfare plans, and this one does. So all of the solid black lines that you see, those lines are because they're included on a thoroughfare plan map of a city. This is just reflective over what Guadalupe County is planning to do. it does take into account and does have colors on roads that are in the city and roads that are controlled by TxDOT, so statewide jurisdiction. Those are going to be your FM roads and your interstates. And then, of course, city roads within the city limits and county in the county outside of city limits and not a TxDOT road. So that's what we're looking at here. This is not on the Guadalupe County website yet. My understanding is that they wanted to wait until they had more revisions to publish it, but for the purpose of me having these meetings, I asked for the most updated version and was given this Friday afternoon. So I am happy to send that to you. Cool. If you can just send me an email, it is on our drive, so I don't see why there would be an issue with that at all. So yeah, no problem there.
Had there been a lot of changes between the August map and the December map?
So for me in Precinct 1, that's where most of my focus obviously lies. And I would say from start to finish, because there was an earlier version or two prior to this that I have dealt with in 2025. So my term started in 25, but this has been a work in progress for several years. Overall, a lot of changes, yes, definitely. It was almost completely redone. From this version to this version, there are several big changes. I would say from like the beginning of 25 to present overall, several of the major changes that were initiated by myself based on citizen feedback were a north-south connector right here in the Schuneman area. That's removed. Then there were several over here, east-west connectors from 123 to FM 1117. Several of them were down here. Well, one was down here. One was over here, one being very close to Zion Hill Road. So I did have those removed, and the reasons why is because this right here, we don't have development plans for this area. Also, these are a lot of very large ranching land tracts. The land tracts are shown on this map, so you can see that they're significantly bigger than, of course, smaller acreage divisions inside a city or closer to the cities. But you can't see it on this map right here, but FM 1681 is an east-west connector. That's a state road. It's very expansive. It certainly serves the citizens appropriately, and it's just off the county line. So I don't think when our engineers, not our counties, but the engineers that we hired were considering this and putting these in there, that they were aware that that's down there, because that is actually in Wilson County, but it certainly does serve this purpose. And then right here, we had this removed, and we instead just an expansion and probably not this wide of Zion Hill Road. So a lot of the notes you see on here are citizen feedback, by the way, and their suggestions. But Zion Hill Road is already pre-existing. You can see that because of the brown line that is within the green color. So that indicates that the road's already existing. And you also see that because the colored line is not dotted. So already existing road, expanding that instead of having something very close to it that would go through a lot of homes and a lot of property and being constructed anew. So that was a big change. Another thing that was a really big hot button issue in Precinct 1 that has changed is that originally there was 725, which is right here, starting here in New Braunfels and going through the McQueenie area, dropping down into now the Seguin area. They were planning on having this drop down further and be a connector right here to this outer loop, ultimately to the 477 area. I also requested and did have that taken off the map as well. So instead, 725 will continue on its route that it already has and will connect with 46 and then 123. These highways, again, under state jurisdiction are more than enough. There's not an overcrowding of traffic. They are recently built roads in good condition. So I do believe that that takes care of the necessity at this time and in the near projected future. One thing that I think is really important to say about all of this too is that one of the reasons there's so much on here is that the most updated thoroughfare plan that Guadalupe County has was from 2012. So of course we're looking at almost 14 years of a gap. And it is my intention, and I believe the court members agree, that we look at something like this and make changes as we see fit and as necessary, much more frequently obviously than 14 years. I mean, the original goal was 10 years. And this project did start before my tenure, but I think that looking at it every 3 to 5 years is certainly more appropriate. And if there's a certain area that really necessitates a change, sooner than that, then we can always, as a court, take that up as well and vote on that. So that's not a problem whatsoever.
So what do you see as, okay, so you said something about like these roads don't get built or expanded until something about the contractors buying, what was that? I
Yeah,
didn't get it.
I think I know what you're asking. So I'll give you what I think the answer is to your question, but obviously correct me if if I'm going in a direction that you weren't asking. But so this is all a proposition. So none of these roads on the county plan are something that we have in our budget that our road and bridge department has on their schedule to build. Like that's not what this is. So we get a lot of questions that are asking about when does this timeline start? When are these roads going to be built or expanded? And so it's actually there is no timeline. It's not that these are in the plans. Any of these changes, whether it be an expansion of a current road or a new construction of a road, would be based upon somebody selling their land. So I always kind of do it's a few prongs. So selling their land to a developer, person, company that develops, right? That development actually starts. So it's not just the intent to develop it, that they're actually going to do it. They start having their plan in place, and that the traffic that development is going to cause, so whether that is new homes or whether that is some sort of large structure that's commercial that will necessitate a lot of traffic flow, would take it to the point that for public safety it would be necessary to add more roadway, whether it's new or again expanded. So did that answer your question?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
So this is all proposed and contingent upon those things.
Okay. And just basics, like, okay, we have this legend, like the pink Parkway X, so ROW is right of way.
Yes, so
200
EX is
feet.
going to be existing, so solid line.
Okay.
And then PR is going to stand for proposed new construction.
Okay.
Although that is a little, not to be confused with the fact that the expansion of these is also proposed for the meaning of the word, right? But just for the legend purposes, that's a solid line is showing something existing, and a dotted line will be something that's proposed that doesn't already pre-exist. And then your ROW stands for right of way.
Okay, so that is what they want to expand it to, and if it's any of these colors, it's being expanded.
So that is what they could expand it up to. So you wouldn't necessarily see construction that would be the full possible width of the right-of-way. It would be that they would start expanding it and that they were making a reservation of that area so that they could potentially expand it up to that if it becomes necessary. And so yes, to answer your question about the correspondence of the colors would correspond to what the proposed expansion would be. Now, of course, in regard to citizen feedback and topography and certain things, nature of the land, existing buildings, things like that, floodplain, historical markers, cemeteries, just different things you may see that could change. It has been my experience in asking several questions with WITS when I have actually gone out and I have driven all of these proposed roads, and sometimes when I will drive out to an area where they're proposing to expand or create a new road, and I will see something that doesn't make sense or seems like it would be very difficult. For example, like if a road goes under a railroad bridge, that we've seen a couple of things like that, or there's a cemetery, something like that, and I have brought that to the attention of the folks that we hired out to do this. They were not aware of those things being in those locations. So then, of course, that was something that they had to adjust their plans for. So certainly, I think that there has been some lack of observation with the area.
So you think that these engineers they haven't even looked at a lot of these roads?
I do not think that they have physically been out to a lot of these areas, no. And that is based on my asking them if they have, and that they have not, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not anyone with the county, that's a contracted firm. But no, I don't think so. I think they do this based on information that they have and just general what expansions look like. But I think it is really important to physically go out to all of these places and observe what this actually looks like, and definitely in doing that myself, I have been able to identify quite a few things that presented as problematic to their plan.
Yeah. Okay. I already asked you, I can't remember if I was rolling, but you're going to be able to send me a list of widths of what the roads are.
Yes, and so
right
let me explain that a little bit. So on all of these and on this chart, they do have a set amount of feet that the right-of-way would be in total. And so right-of-way would be including, lanes going one way or the other, turn lanes. So whether that's a center turn lane or that's, ingress or egress onto the road, turn lanes that would be there for a short amount of time, and of course not be there when there's nothing to turn into, paved shoulders, and then shoulders outside the pavement. So the right-of-way can encompass all of that. Sometimes it doesn't encompass all of that, of course, just depending on the road. So when I did submit some questions, because I have seen or spoken to people that have worked with thoroughfare plans before, and they did receive from engineering a little chart about the existing widths of the roads, and I felt like that was very helpful for them to be able to make a determination about what the change would be. So like, here's what it looks like now, here's what it's proposed to, so like, what does that look like as far as what like the change would look like? This engineering company said that is not included in their scope of work for a project such as this. That was unfortunate. I did reach out to TxDOT and worked with our road and bridge department, and TxDOT does have a tool on their website where you can look at a TxDOT road, and you would have to just place a marker in the center of the road, and it will tell you, it will show you where the right-of-way is and how far in width the right-of-way is. Now that is not consistent all the way for any road necessarily, but that is a good tool to use. Unfortunately, we don't have that for the county, but so it's a little different. But I did drive all these roads, and so I think what you're referencing that I was talking about earlier is that in driving all of these roads, I took my own notes on it. So if a lane was one lane going this way, one lane going that way, the approximate width of the shoulders. Just some shoulders that are paved are really small. Sometimes you have it where it's almost a full lane. And whether or not there are turn lanes, center turn lanes, ingress, egress. So I did do that, and then in corresponding with these different entities, and our road and bridge department was very helpful with this, talking about if you have, if you get up to 90 feet in width, like what would you expect that to look like as far as how many lanes, right? Like just because I think that it's easier for people to see that because everyone knows what 2-lane highway looks like. The train. And so they were able to give me that with each of these, what you would expect that to be as far as number of lanes, turn lanes, et cetera. So I think that was really helpful because I was able to look at these roads and say, okay, so this is as it exists right now. So for example, Schneider Road, that's one way here, one way there. There's not a turn lane. The shoulder's not very wide in a lot of places. It's not marked. So for them to be expanding it to 120 feet would be more than just one lane and one lane. The room for that, I'm not really sure that that's there. So something like this, I think it may be more prudent to take that to less of a width expansion, just considering what it currently looks like right now. A lot of areas on Schneider Road, this is hilly in several places. So if you are coming out of a driveway, you have to move pretty quickly because there could potentially be a car coming over the hill that you can't see in several places there. So just different things to take into consideration, certainly. So while this would benefit, from an ingress-egress lane, safety and collision-wise, like, is that possible without it being at a large expense? And so that's something that probably needs to be considered. Another reason why I thought that it would be, or would have been, or still would be, valuable if the engineering company would go out and look at some of these in person.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Selfishly, I live on 90. How wide do you think 90 is? Do you know?
Currently?
Yeah.
90 currently, it changes, but 90 currently, is 1-on-1 and then often does have a turn. The shoulders are pretty sizable. So I don't know exactly, as far as that is. I can tell you as far as lanes. It's at least 1-on-1 with a turn lane for a lot of it, ingress, egress, and including the shoulders. So I would say it's not a collector. It's not a 90-foot collector. It's probably looking somewhere in that 120 area because their plan to expand it is up to 150. Obviously, we can conclude that it's not at 150 in all places. And 150, you would probably look at having a 2 and 2. And it's obviously not that. So I think it's definitely between 150 and 90 just based on like what they have planned and of course like me driving and my observation of it. So I don't think that this would be huge in a lot of spots because I think it's probably close to what the proposition is in quite a few places. But again, a lot of this wouldn't necessarily be expansion, but reservation of what we would look at as maybe the shoulder or the grassy shoulder that's outside of a paved shoulder.
Yeah, it is stressful because it's right against the train tracks. So
yes.
That's all going to be coming out of people's front yards or their houses or whatever. I don't know. My house is a little pushed back, but there's a lot of houses right up close to 90 that If it expands by 30 feet, that's gonna,
So 90 is one of the roads that is under the jurisdiction of TxDOT, so the state of Texas and not Guadalupe County. Of course, this is acknowledged on our map because of engineering and what they think will probably end up happening, et cetera. So it's not something that we have authority over. I can certainly say from the county's perspective that the least invasive method is best, and I know that's something that we're going to do our best to pursue in the renditions of this map before the final one comes out and gets voted on. I believe the state is under the same set of goals for that in avoidance of anyone's homes or anything like that. And of course, one thing that I think is a valid point is that the center of the road, so the center of the lanes, is not always the center of the total width of reservation. So like if you have a road and there's some homes or buildings like really close to the road on one side and there's space over here, if they are going to expand it, it doesn't have to be symmetrical. They can build on one side and then they can restripe.
but if one side is right next to the train tracks, then it has to all come from the other side, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so if that was what they
So
that was what they
that's gonna
did.
be all of 90 that comes through kind of downtown Kingsbury.
Yes, but again, I want to say that I think that a lot of this was done without looking at a lot of what's going on physically, and it would be very expensive and a lot of work for a governmental entity to have to take down places that are, already built, homes, buildings,
Yeah.
things like that. I know that in Staples, for example, that was a concern that they raised because FM 621, which goes through the center of Staples, the proposed up to expansion would have interfered with many different things, among them being a church, a cemetery, a historical marker, city hall buildings, personal property, commercial property, et cetera. I did go out, that's not in my precinct, but I did go out to observe it and drive it myself so I could see, and certainly I do think the mayor was accurate in his concerns for that and advocated for that, and that road did, that expansion did get taken off of the proposal. So certainly I think that if that's the case in other places, and if Kingsbury is that we need to look at that and make that to where it's more workable. So, and I do have several notes here from people that have articulated it. Please also keep in mind, we got this on Friday, so we have not had a lot of reaction time to this version of the map, pretty much not at all, because this is my 4th public meeting in 3 days. So I have not had a lot of reaction time to look at this and physically go with the new proposed widths and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
But certainly I want to say that with Kingsbury, I mean, I will certainly advocate and fight against anything that's going to take apart any sort of established home business, anything that would be detrimental to the city of Kingsbury. So certainly I will advocate on that behalf.
Yeah. Mayor Shirley got a little misty-eyed because she was saying that the country store, she owns the country store right down here, and she was saying if they did the proposed change on Kingsbury Road, it would take out that store entirely.
Yeah, it is certainly my intent to advocate against that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know she's on the same page, so.
What would you suggest to people watching this at home as far as their concerns? What should they do?
I mean, certainly make their voice known to the representatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So reach out to their precinct
Yes,
commissioner?
of course, absolutely, and that's the purpose of me having all of these meetings. Is I wanted to make sure that people had opportunity to come, review the maps, review the most updated version of the maps, talk about why they think something's a good idea or not a good idea, so that we have the full opinions of the citizens before we make decisions. I think that's really important that we hear from them. Obviously, it's my position that this is our job, is to represent our citizens. We do what's best for the county, but the county is the people. So making sure that they know and that they're informed and that they have buy-in on decisions is really important. So I would absolutely encourage anybody that has feedback or just want to have a conversation to reach out to their representatives. The county judge, of course, is over the whole county. He would be a voting member, and then each commissioner for their separate precinct. But for example, the mayor of Staples did reach out to all of us to talk about it, and I did go out there and drive that. So I think that was certainly productive for him and for the rest of us to see, because this is something that passes by a majority vote. So I think that, yeah, it's a productive thing certainly to let their voices be known. And, I think that assuming that we know everything, all the details, is not always accurate, because there's certain things that people have pointed out to me, water towers here, et cetera, or there's, a difference in topography that you can't tell from this map. And unfortunately, we were not provided with a layer that shows that from the contract engineer. So when people come and tell us, that is very helpful, because looking at this, you couldn't necessarily tell.
Yeah. Yeah, the fire chief was also saying that this looks like it could take out the fire station, or at least some portion of it. That's on 1104 and 90.
I'm familiar with the location of that, but I will say that, again, when I've asked about a lot of the locations of these lines, I've been told, well, this is kind of a little bit of an approximate, and it's not very helpful for me to talk to citizens about that, of course. Originally, we did not have a version, so if you focus over here really quick, I just wanted to show, this map has tracts of land on here also, so it shows property division lines. When we originally got presented with a rendition of this, we were not given a copy of this map with the property division lines. And of course, that made it very difficult to make decisions or determinations, because you don't know if this is cutting someone's property in half. Often I found there were properties that the line would cut off their river access, and did submit that back to engineering, but it was something that without the property lines or knowledge of where they're located, how would they know? So, it was certainly a stressful thing to me that the original version we were given to and could have voted on, had we not noticed that and put it off, did not even include those property lines. And I don't think that in good conscience you could make a decision on that one way or the other without knowing where those property lines are.
So when you say voted on, like this has been voted on?
No, ma'am. No. The current version that we have that was voted on is a 2012 version that the Commissioners Court in 2012 voted on and approved. So for a thoroughfare plan to be approved by the County Commissioners Court, it would have to be passed by a majority of 5, so 3. And so the current version is 2012.
How soon do you see it being voted on?
Well, it's a work in progress. So all of these comments I am going to take back. We'll organize them all and send that to engineering. So our county engineer has been a liaison to the contracted engineer, and they will go back with all the requests and suggestions that the citizens have provided, and that I also support, and they will make those changes. And we have had some difficulty with some requested changes not being reflected on the map that I have requested. So we are still working on that, and so my goal is to get this. Do as much work as we possibly can to get this to where the citizens don't feel threatened, scared for their livelihood, anything like that, the best that we can. And of course, if we're able to meet our goals, then that's wonderful. And if we're not, then certainly that would change my position depending on where we end up before we vote. So it's not set yet. I think it would be just dependent upon how long this work takes to update this version of the map, and then all of us review it. I do think it would probably be prudent to again ask for public comment. We would put the map on the website that's updated and ask for public comment on that at that point. I don't know that everyone has gotten enough time to really review it. Now, again, all of our decisions about what we do are by majority vote, so I am just one person on a panel, but I can speak for myself and give you my opinion.
Okay. I had one other question that I forgot and then remembered again.
Yeah,
and I heard you talking to somebody else about it, but something I came in wondering was if the road is encroaching into somebody's property, they get paid for that. I mean, like if
any amount of property that a person owns that would be used for this sort of purpose, yes, they would be paid for that, for a fair market value of whatever their property is. Yes.
Fair market value.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, that's not. I certainly.
I mean, not that I.
Well, I certainly acknowledge that's not. What a lot of people want. They want their property. They don't want.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my husband and I moved here like 4 years ago, and if I thought there was going to be a big highway right in front of my house, I don't think I would have bought the house.
Yes. I think that's definitely your sentiment has been echoed by many people throughout this process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I understand
really
that.
appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for letting me have this time and space to get that FaceTime with the citizens and letting them come and, you know, see things. I really, really appreciate it. It's been really awesome. The 3 places that, you know, 3 businesses that have let me come in, and I still have 2 more meetings this week, but Comanche Crossing and the 1117 General Store and Feed, and then here at Kingsbury Hall have been gracious enough to let me have gatherings here. So it's been wonderful.
When are your next 2 meetings? I'll probably put this up tomorrow or something.
Oh, the next 2 days. The next 2 days. So I have them. I've been having them every day this week at different times. So I did 3 evening meetings: Monday, Tuesday, and today. Monday I did 12 to 2 at Comanche Crossing. I did 5 to 7 at the 1117 store on Monday. In the courthouse downtown, Tuesday 5 to 7, and of course we're here in Kingsbury, Wednesday 5 to 7, and then I have 12 to 2s. Comanche Crossing, I believe, without looking at my schedule, is 12 to 2 tomorrow, and then the 1117 store is 12 to 2 Friday.
Okay, so that's the 17th and the 18th. No, today's the 17th.
Today's the 17th, so 18 and 19.
Mm-hmm. What a week.
It's been fast, but I just, you know, wanted to have options for every day, and then, you know, lunch breaks and evenings, just to make sure that people, you know, were able to have an opportunity to, you know, get here. So.
Yeah. All right, that's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.